Are you there, Dr. Amitabh?
Yeah, I am very much here. Uh,
Okay. Okay. I will give more information about you. Okay, Dr.
okay.
Amita Vikram Dwivedi is a university faculty of linguistics and heading the School of Languages and Literature at Sri Mata Vaishno Devi University, India. His research interests include language documentation, writing descriptive grammars, and the preservation of rare and endangered languages in South Asia. His published books can be found in the libraries of University of Stanford and Princeton. He has contributed numerous papers to many science citation index and Scopus journals. And he is also a poet who has published numerous poems in different anthologies, journals, and magazines worldwide. Wow. Okay, Dr. Amitabh, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, over to you.
Okay, thank you for your kind introduction. And the topic that I have selected for my presentation, I'm sharing the slide. Allow me to share the slide.
Yes,
And I
please.
hope now you are able to see the slide. The topic that I have selected is employing cognitive strategies for online reading and note taking. So this is a topic because we know that we are living in a pandemic society, and
So be here.
that is a new normal, and we have accepted that this is our fate. And how to deal with this situation, particularly when we are reading something, we are teaching to our students, and we are making notes, or we are teaching our students how they should prepare notes. So this presentation is about these things, and as I said, I'm talking about the cognitive strategies. Then first I would like to tell you what cognitivism deals with. So basically, cognitivism is a theory of learning, and as we know that if we want to learn something, it requires the use of memory, and whatever we read, we need to reflect upon that, and we need some metacognition, motivation, and abstraction at the same time. So cognitivism makes active mental processes. So it makes use of active mental processes. And what are active mental processes? Like attention, memory span, then the information that we are receiving. So that is basically the primary object of this study. And we know that information processes are seen as the foundation of learning in cognitivism. We also know that whatever the information we gain, whatever the information we receive, it remains for a fraction of second in the sensory store, and if it is not transferred to active memory instantly, then it is lost forever. Now the task of the teacher is very crucial, because the teacher is sending information, imparting information to his her pupils, students, all the time, and students are getting new information. And if that information is not transferred into active memory, then that information is going to be lost forever. So I'm just going to tell you certain techniques that will be useful for students as well as teachers, that how how efficiently they can do this transfer. Yes. So from the cognitive perspective, it is important for educator to create conditions and strategies for learners that facilitate connections between new information and old information, because old information is already there in the long-term memory, and new information is to be transformed or and transferred to the active memory, and later on into the long-term memory. So there are certain pre-instructional cognitive strategies. They can promote the learning and retention of new information, and thus support the learning process. So this is basically the aim of this presentation, that how the role of teacher is very important. So these are certain cognitive strategies that we have: repetition, organizing new language, summarizing meaning, guessing meaning from context, using imagery for memorization, and developing argumentation thinking. So these are the things that are directly related to cognitive strategies, and they can be used effectively in a class. So this is one type of note-taking method, and it deals with, uh, as you can see that on the top, the student will write the biographic detail of the text. So the student will write the name of the title of the text, the name of the authors, when it is published, the name of the publication house, all such things the student will write on the top margin. Then on the left hand side, the student, what student will write, a student will paraphrase the notes, a student will write the summaries of important information, a student can directly write the exact quotations that are used, and a student can also write the information related to page number, paragraph number, for accuracy in citation. Then as you can see that there is a red portion that is rather broad, and here the student will raise certain questions that is related to the class. So this is like how the information is relevant to my purpose. So accordingly, this question student will raise and write accordingly that this information can be used in such and such fields. Then how does this information relate to my assignment? How, where will I use it in my assignment? And the topics that are related to uh, the subject. Then other questions like, does the author say anything new or of a particular interest? Do I have questions? Is there anything that I don't understand that I need to follow up? So why these questions are there actually? Because these questions are, they will uh, they will work as a brainstorming activity. They will make you think, they will make students think. So once these questions are there in front of students, let's say in a PDF file or in a Word file, or let's say on a piece of paper, then student, whatever the topic student is listening or learning, student can relate to that topic and think about in terms of the answers, the possible answers that he is getting. So it is like a self introspection the student is getting, and this type of detail will help student to connect the new knowledge uh, in practical purpose, or in order to transfer the new knowledge into active memory. So this is one type of method students can use, where they can have a quite significant knowledge of the text that are dealt with, and the paraphrased and summaries and whatever is discussed in the text. Then another method students can use, or even the teachers they can use, that is known as this mind mapping process. Now mind mapping process is, you are simply mapping your own mind. So whatever is going on related to a topic in your mind, lots of associations, lots of permutations and combinations that are related, that you can map, and then you can make such sort of a presentation type thing that you will understand very clearly. So let's say here one example, I am going to talk about creative language. So what I have written like, I'm talking about creative language, then how creative language is associated with the poetic function, then how creative language is associated with performance. And then I have also written like how Roman Jacobson, these these critiques and these linguists, how and what do they feel about this poetic function. Then I have also mentioned Roman Jacobson's book, the title of the book, and the publications detail I have also mentioned. Then it is a relation between language use in culture and society. So how creative language is actually used in culture and society, that can also be the part of. So lots of things you are writing. So creative language in the text, as well as creative language in action, gestures, and all such things. So this is my mind mapping. So if I have this information, I can talk about let's say for 1 hour looking at this slide. And even like if I go through this slide in 2-3 minutes, then I can know all the things that are associated with thing. So this is a mind mapping and very fruitful activity when you want to revise your topic. It is again a type of a note taking process where you just map whatever the things that are associated with a particular topic in your mind. So this is again a very effective method that you can use and your students can also use. Then this is like if you are teaching short stories, if you are teaching, let's say, novel, then you can guide your students that they can prepare a story map, that what is the settings, who are the characters, what are the problems with those characters, and whether the plot is simple or complex, what are the events associated with the specific characters, and if there is a problem, how that particular problem is resolved. So these are other things that are associated, and then teacher can guide them to do. Then this is a visualizer, and this visualizer is as you can see here, it is empty, because this is again a form of a mind mapping where you have various arrows and sections and subsections where you can direct your thought to a final version. So you can use this empty template, as well as you can modify it and make it on your own, and you can again make a good notes using this visualizer. Then another such method is Kernel method, and again you find that there are 3 sections, like left hand side is a narrow one and the right hand side is a broad one, and in the bottom you will find that a column, a small
Yes.
there. So
Excuse me, Mister. One more minute.
yeah, please. So in the bottom, you find that you will write the summary of that column, summary of the text, and like what the lecture dealt with, that you can write. And then in the Q columns, like you can write after the class, students write down questions, cues, which can be used later for review. When you study, cover the notes column, and review using your notes in the Q column. Then in the notes column, the student records lecture notes, making use of as much as shorthand as possible, leaving spaces. So a telegraphic language student needs to use, because a lecture is of, let's say, 40 minutes or 1 hour, then you need to write the crust of that particular lecture, because if you can't write everything that teacher has dealt with. So this is how this Kernel method is quite useful. Then another method is the T method, and this T method is slightly different from the Kernel method, because on the top you will write dates, page number, and other bibliographic detail that you can write, and in the left hand side column you will write steps for examples and practice problem, and in the right hand side you record notes for yourself, and there are certain questions, if any, that you can write them down. You can ask those questions to your teacher, or in the next class you can also ask those things. Now the last thing, the last point that is quite effective, particularly, and it is the part of this cognitive strategy, is developing argumentative thinking, because argumentative thinking is basically deals with the multiple voices that are there. So it is not actually the case that the one point of view the teacher is telling, that is the final point of view. You can argument. So argument is not in terms of a negative argumentation or you are creating a disruption, but it is like multiple voices, a more democratic setup where you can interact with your teacher, because when you have an interaction, then you can develop an argumentative thinking. So interaction is the very basis, and Bakhtin also talks about this in his work. And with this argumentative thinking, there is a term heteroglossia that is also associated, where multiple voices are not only heard, but they are appreciated. And then how can you have an argumentative thinking when you have a dialogue with the text? So sometimes text, let's say the person is available, your teacher is available, so you can have a dialogue with your teacher. But when you are reading a PDF file written by some author, the author is absent. So how can you interact with an absent author? The way is you can just use the margin of the book. So you can use the margin, let's say left hand side margin, top margin, and bottom margin, and whatever the sentences, paragraphs you are reading, you just question those things, whether you agree with them, you disagree with them, what is your viewpoint, what is in your local context, these things will happen. So this is the way you can have a dialogue with the text. uh, so uh, so but you need to understand, first of all, what is an argument and what is not. So argument is basically a continuous process. So you need to continuously arguing with the text. You need to have a dialogue with the text. So one utterance follows another utterance. Let's say this presentation I am giving, this is again in the form of a dialogue, because we have a question answer session immediately after this. So once my presentation is over, then participants will raise their question and then I will answer those. So this is again a sort of an argumentative type of seminar and not one-sided. So teachers should make their presentation argumentative, where students, they have a voice, they can raise their question, and the teacher will reply them. So this is like one method that you can use once you read some text, when the author is absent, or when the initiator is absent. Once you are reading a PDF file, or once you are reading something online,
Yes.
the folded paper approach, and where you can fold the paper into two pieces, or you can make two columns in a document Word file. And what you will do, on the fold a piece of paper half vertically. On the left hand side page, you will make statements about what the text is saying. On the right hand side, you will question these statements. So what type of questions you can, so you can just subject any text to this process, whatever the text, technical, literature wise, poetry, prose, anything that you are reading, you can take into consideration and you can do it accordingly.
Okay, Mr. Amitabh,
Yeah.
enough?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Okay, now we move to the session of question and answer.
fine. Okay.
We have a
Thank you all.
question from Indonesia.
Yes.
The question is, do you think mind mapping is applicable for all skills in English?
Pardon, mind mapping is applicable to?
For all skills in English.
Yes, mind mapping activity is applicable to any field of study, irrespective of the fact whether you are studying a scientific subject, or you are studying a literary topic. Mind mapping is a process where you map your own mind. Whatever is your understanding about the topic, accordingly you can add certain columns, add certain boxes, and you can show how how better you have understood that thing. And that is basically the mind mapping process. So it is simply a reflection to your understanding, what you have understood. This is my say.
Okay. Maybe we have one more question.
Yeah, please.
What is the difference between visualizer and mind mapping? Which one is
Visual.
the best for EFL learners, do you think?
So once you look at the visualizer, then you will find it is more systematic, and you have various columns in one direction. So it is like you can consider visualizer as a unilateral way of diagramming whatever's there in your mind. So you either start from bottom to top, or you can start from top to bottom. But when it comes to mind mapping, that is quite different from visualizers, because the arrows, the boxes, and the things, the columns, they can go anywhere. They can go anywhere, because you are not channelizing them in one direction. So visualizer is unidirectional model, whereas when it comes to mind mapping, it is multi-directional model. This is basically the difference. So certain people, they are multitasking. So similarly, if you are multitasking, then you have this skill of multi-directionalness. And if you are like very systematic, then you are unidirectional. So this is basically the difference between visualizers and the mind mapping.
Okay, for more question, maybe we can send to you directly after this, Mr. Amitabh, because we have a limited time.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much. That was fantastic presentation. And would you mind to send your material to the committee right after this,
Yeah,
please?
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Amitabh. This is our last session. Please give applause to all of our presenters. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have spent about an hour and a half with the very fantastic presenters, great materials, and enthusiast participants. Finally, this is the end of the session. Thank you very much for being with us today. See you again in another event. Stay safe and stay positive. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.